All right, so I just composited these. I'm going to leave that for now and go to the other approach you can use. Instead of compositing in from existing logos, you can work from your own sketches, your own visions. And I was going to use, let's see, Nico. So we have a campus. Here he is. We have a campus mascot, Nico the Nighthawk. And this is the primary vector image of him that's used. And so I wanted to take that and make a different kind of version of him as more of a logo design. So I've done this before and I've kind of made a digital coloring design. But this time, I want to take that as influence, and I came up with this sketch as kind of an achievement badge idea. That's just one. If you have trouble getting into the Earth Day theme and you want to be more specific, I thought it was kind of a fun rebranding of it. People really liked coat of arms last semester. So the idea of actually like making an achievement badge, it allows you to be a little bit more fanciful with it, but it would keep it focused as well. And that way it could be about something specific. So here it's about animals. It could be about water conservation. It could be about air pollution. It doesn't have to be just about Earth Day in general. So as a strategy, it's open to you as a strategy to keep the Earth Day thing from feeling generic. And so this, I don't think anyone would connect it with Earth Day, right? But to call it, animal survival achievement badge takes care of that. And art students are always doing that, working within the, the assignment. All right. So I'm going to take that sketch, and it was just done in pencil. I'm going to open it up in Photoshop to see if I can just clean it up a little bit more. So that's always good to do. So I'll call this sketch 2. So I'm doing my logo, kind of recycled logo on that one, and I'll call this an achievement badge approach. An achievement badge would actually have to be embroidered, but you know what you give the embroidered company to do it? You give them a vector file. So these are different reasons you would need vectors. So I say I paste it in. So why might I want to clean up my sketch? Well, no matter how precise you are with your drawing, to make it work as a clean vector, you really need to tinker with it. So for one, if I'm going with a symmetrical design, I want it to truly be symmetrical. And I mean that in the shape. And you can see just by drawing that how it's a little off. So the first thing I can do is make a duplicate of it and then transform it and maybe distort it a little bit. Bring the bottom of this side in a little, so that it's more equal on both sides there. And I have two spikes here, 3 spikes there. I have a tail here, no tail there. So this is flirting with central symmetrical design, but it's also just a little different. So I'm just trying to tighten it up a little. And again, these compositing skills come in really handy in digital art in general. Just trying to line it up on a center. And this is kind of a stylized N here that's symmetrical. And the eye, I wanted to keep just slightly off center so it feels like a head, facing the left. But then on the wings, in the feather pattern of the wings, are the eyes for kind of a tiger design. And so this is the nose of the tiger. And that's kind of why I liked this idea. And then I can try to get these points at about the same level. This is all using distort. Kind of trying to split the difference. It's like rolling dough. And I can use these guides. I kind of like that for dead center of the design. All right, so that's one way you can clean it up. Just kind of tighten it. And that makes a big difference. So that's a little bit tighter, a little bit cleaner. A little bit more pleasing and gathered a shape. That will do what I want. Next, obviously, I can just cut out the stuff I don't need, these other little sketch marks. Fill them with white. Because when you sketch in pencil, smudges happen, little things happen. This is still just a sketch, so I'm not worried about the resolution or anything. I'm just cleaning it up before I bring it into Illustrator. All right, because I'll show you two approaches. So that looks pretty good. I am not going to obsess over the line quality. This line quality is not very good, right? Even though it's scanned and like darkened and levels are played with, and I can continue to play with them. I can go to image adjustment levels, even though I just did it in preview before. And I can try to, darken and brighten. It's not going to make a whole lot of difference because this does not make a clean vector yet. And we're going to see the difference between vector imaging and raster. But I can save this now as just a JPEG file. And then I can save it as a Photoshop file. Minimize this. And now, for the first time, I'm entering a new program. I'm going to take my JPEG. I'm going to open it with Adobe Illustrator. Now, while that's working on it, because Illustrator can take a little while to open for the first time, let's just look at this file. So if I open it up in preview and I just look at its size, this is only 72 pixels per inch, right? It's not very large. It's only 461 kilobytes. Fewer than a megabyte. And if I zoom in, you can see all the pixels very clearly. So this is definitely a raster image. And if I want clean curves for my logo, raster is not the way to get them, because I always get this stair stepping. Now it's open in Illustrator. And sure enough, if I zoom in Illustrator, which has the same navigation shortcuts as Photoshop, so Command plus is zoom in, you can see the image is not very clean looking. It's very kind of distorted. What I can do, first of all, it looks blurry because it's all sized up. To transform in Illustrator, all you have to do is click on the image you brought in, the image you opened, with this, what I call the large selection tool, the black arrow. It's different than the move tool. And then you just hold down shift and you drag from a corner. And if you want to shrink it towards the middle, you hold down shift and option. So basically, just by choosing that tool, you are choosing a transform box. And that transform box can be used to rotate it, by clicking outside the corners, or to distort it. But this is, and you don't actually need to hit return, you can just click off of it. But this is still a raster image, right? Pixel based. Because it's a raster image, notice that the only thing I can select is the whole thing. And as soon as I select it, by clicking on the large move tool, it will give me these options up here, which are to trace it into a vector. Now I'm going to do this just so you can see what this looks like. This is called live tracing. And some people refer to it as vectorizing. So how do you turn a raster image into a vector? Well, this is a way. But it's not going to work really well for this because it's not clean enough yet. Okay, so I go to the image trace options, and I'm going to go to black and white logo. That's a good default option here. And then I'm going to click on this, which is the image trace panel, to get these results. And the first thing I'm going to do is click on the drop-down menu next to Advance, and I'm going to click on this option at the bottom, which says Ignore the White. And that way it will only trace black shapes, and it will leave empty space instead of tracing both black and white shapes. So what does that look like? Well, if I drag it over here, you'll see there's no white anymore. It's only looking at the black shapes. Okay, now it's like scanner settings. I can play with these different options. All of a sudden, this is no longer a raster image. This is previewing a vector image, where no matter how much I zoom in, it's perfectly clean. It's a big difference, right? But the problem is it doesn't work very well because there's so much sloppiness to it, right? It looks like his feet are drunk or something. So maybe I can make that work better with these. So I can use the threshold to decide how much black or how much of the grays or those messy marks for it to include. It's like, how much tolerance does it have? Right? I try to find the best result. Then you can say, well, how many individual shapes do you want? And I say, I want there to be as few individual shapes as possible. And then it will try to combine certain shapes, right? But you'll get less complexity in the form. And then how many corners? If I want fewer corners, it will smooth everything out a little bit, but it doesn't mean it will smooth it in the way I want it to. And then the noise is how small can the individual shapes be? And if I say they can be as small as 1 pixel, then I get all of these little tiny cutouts of vectors, right? But if I say no, they have to be, 98 pixels or larger to be their own shape, well, then it's going to get rid of a lot of that little debris. But you'll still have these little things incorporated. All right, so some designers like to work this way. And this is a way we'll work with line work, something we'll do later. It's one option. And if I like it, then I can say expand up here, and it will convert it into a vector. So how do I know it's a vector now? Well, because I have all these little anchor points showing. And each of those anchor points gives me control of, say, the curve. Now, one thing it vectorized well was that outside edge, right? But even that could be cleaned up. I could take out certain points, and I can play with the curve until it was exactly what I want. But here on the inside, I would have to redraw basically everything. And I like to use the pencil tool for that. And we'll learn about that. They're like magic scissors. I'd use the pencil tool, and doing it with my mouse is not working so well, so I moved to my tablet, and I would redraw this line until it was smoother, and then I can always use the smooth tool to help average it out. So that's one clean curve, in my design. But my design has lots of them. So if live tracing or vectorizing from something that you did is not an appealing approach because it just isn't very clean, no matter how well you drew it, this is a nice advantage of Illustrator. I can hit Command-Z multiple times to undo everything, even undo the vectorizing, to get back to my sketch. So the way most people use their sketches in Illustrator is as like an underlying kind of thing to trace on top of. And so that's what I'm going to do here. Now I could just bring it in again, but I wanted to show you that Command-Z works basically as far back as you like, which is nice, since Photoshop Command-Z does not work that way. You have to use your history states.